Hey guys, I'm the Kentucky Atheist, and today I'm going to have a sit-down discussion with pop artist Stephens Salyers, coming to us from Nashville, Kentucky. How you doing today, Stephen?
Good, man. Good.
Is there anything you'd like to tell everybody about yourself before we get going?
Sure. Yeah. Happy to be with you today. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, and this has been my home for 18 years, where I've been recording music and a pillar of the music industry. And then obviously as a creative entrepreneur, now a podcaster, and I've got a fashion line. But I'm all about connecting for a great conversation. So really grateful to reconnect with you after 20 years. We graduated high school together, and just get into some good conversation with you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you and I were friends in high school, and haven't really been in touch much since then. And I'm really happy to be able to sit down and do this with somebody that I have a past with.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's just jump right into it here. I talk a lot to people about different things they believe and why. I take part in debates and things like that. And this isn't really about that. This is more, I'm trying to start a video series where I can talk to people and get their perspectives and further to the discussion on our end rather than be adversarial in the whole thing. So um, I believe you're a Christian. Is this correct? Would you?
Yeah, I would say probably seeker would be, a little loosely, but yeah, certainly have been affiliated to being a Christian. Some would say
Okay.
I'm mystic as well. So at the end of the day, I'm just another version of you.
So it would be fair to say then that you have questions about some of it, and other things though you accept. You
Yeah,
accept a soul and spirituality, but maybe not that the God of the Bible is necessarily explained best in the Bible. Would that be
correct.
fair?
Yeah,
Okay.
I would say the Bible wasn't written to us. It was written for us sort of as a resource, if you will. But I don't believe in like a man in the sky that sits on a chair and has a water gun ready to shoot us for mistakes, if you will.
Fair enough. I and other atheists sometimes use the words magic sky daddy, which is I don't know. I'm thinking about dropping that because the more I look at it, I feel like it's kind of rude and doesn't help the discussion any. But so what do you think a soul is?
Well, a soul, I believe, is something that we're all born with, whether that's questionable for your enemy or not. Um, I believe that when we're born into this world, we come in, untethered by, the human experience. 9 months we're in this womb of our mother, and then all of a sudden we're handed to two broken individuals who got to figure out like how to teach us and raise us and feed us, and sort of make an attempt in making sure that we don't get into deep danger or trouble along the way. So I believe the soul is always there within us. I believe that even after we take our last breath, it continues on. I'm not sure quite what happens when we die, but I don't believe our soul or spirit ever dies. Um, and that's a conversation of its own. I do believe that the soul is often the blueprint of our life, meaning that it is in service to what we believe is our purpose or our destiny, whether that's career, professionally, or family, or the uh, the heartbeat behind what we want to leave or do or to create impact for our community or for ourselves, sort of in a nutshell.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it could be a number of things. That's fair enough and an honest answer, and that's all I
Yeah.
really look for in this. I would say a soul does not exist, of course, but I don't hold that there's any good reason to believe in a God or anything supernatural for that matter. But this isn't about me.
Right. And you're welcome
So
to have your own opinion. That's just my experience.
right. Right. There are as many point of views on this as there are people that have point of views. So that's really the reason why I wanted to make this video and to start this series of videos, is to get some of those points of view so that we're not always putting everybody in the same basket. I don't think that's fair, and I don't think that helps anything.
Right.
And I'm trying to find new ways to further this conversation without doing the same old thing that's been done over and over, because there are a lot of atheist YouTubers. But it is what it is. So
like, if I can ask you, because I believe that there are big souls that come in like with assignments, like that is their destiny. What do you think that we have if we don't have a soul? What is it you think that each non-believer of that would have?
I think that whenever you add a soul to the discussion, that you're complicating it, that you can explain our being here and what we are naturally. I don't think I think as far as what we feel and the things we do are all just products of chemical reactions in our brains. That the idea of a soul comes from wind, actually. If you read back in the Bible, where they're in the Old Testament, they describe life as being the breath of life. And people back then thought that your breath was your soul, that your soul was in the air, and that whenever a baby's born, it starts breathing then. It doesn't breathe in the womb, but it starts breathing once it's born. And that's why they believe that was the soul going into the baby. So there's a lot of that in the Bible and historically in other religions too, where they describe the soul and the spirit as being the breath, or being air. If you they thought that when you got sick, it was because you had bad air. So they thought the soul and demons and all that were things that were in the air and could get into you and cause these illnesses and everything else. Now, that is, of course, debatable. There's, Christianity doesn't agree with that, even though it's in their book. I've done quite a bit of studying on that to get to that point. And of course, that's still just a very, very short idea of what it is. Whenever, I think anything supernatural can be explained by natural means, and those things that can't be explained, it's okay to not be able to explain something sometimes. We as humans, we look for answers to things, and we look so hard that sometimes when we can't answer those things, we attribute them to things that are not and cannot be. I would say that no one has demonstrated that there's any reason to believe that anything supernatural exists. Not to say that it doesn't, but there's no evidence to support that. And through my journey becoming an atheist and to the point where I'm doing this channel, there's been a lot of I've had to look at science and see the things that there are evidence for and the things there aren't evidence for. Now, science doesn't say anything about the supernatural or God, but it's the best tool we have to describe the world around us. And if these things affect the world around us, there should be evidence of them. So that's where I set on all that.
Supernatural is not really to be explained anyway, like that's sort of.
Well, by definition, you have the natural world and then something on top of it, supernatural.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't think that you would necessarily be able to explain it, but if supernatural things interact with our world in any way,
Mhm.
we should be able to observe that. Now, maybe we don't have the tools to do that yet, and maybe we never will.
Mhm.
But it's not, from what we know now, we've looked and there's no way to do that. We can observe magnetic waves from two black holes colliding billions of light years away with some really great equipment, but we can't find any evidence of anything supernatural.
Mhm.
And again, that's not to say it doesn't exist. That's just to say there's this claim that there is a God and a supernatural, and I just reject that claim.
Mhm.
It's I could be convinced. I'm not sure what would convince me, but that's how I feel about it currently.
For all we know, aliens do exist, and we're actually living on their planet, and they're like, "Who the fuck are these humans living on our planet?" You know, I mean,
What?
and I think that for me, it's like I don't have the answers, but I do have a lot of questions. Some make sense, others don't make sense. Some have resources I can, look into, like the Googler, if you will, and some are beyond reason that are, mental limiting minds could measure. So
Definitely.
I
Yeah, being skeptical doesn't mean that you have to be skeptical of every bit of everything. I mean, you can be whatever level of skeptic you want to be, or not at all. That's on the individual.
sure.
So, spirituality, would you say that spirituality is something supernatural or something that's just within us, or
Well,
both?
that's in the eyes of the beholder, because my experience and my spirituality, I could not compare to yours or lack thereof, or your experience to a source that, you have connection with. I is your experience, and I shouldn't be able to judge or measure that. Me personally, I mean, I think that it's available for each of us if we choose to believe it. For instance, when I walk in the mornings, like I understand that I am here on this earth. I do know that, and that I am a collaborator or participating with the birds who are also here in front of my eyes, with the trees who have been here long before I was born or thought of, who have been on this street for many years beyond my own circumstances or history. And so, therefore, that leads me into this curiosity that is spiritual, that is connecting my curiosity with the divine, which is bigger than me, which is unexplainable in definite, concrete terms. But I believe that it has some sort of existence, not in human form per se, but like at least I choose to seek that or live in that space of curiosity,
Yeah,
Um, and that does not put it in a box of religion or category of Christian or non-Christian. It just is the experience. Spirituality also, I'm a student to spirituality with my dog, my rescue dog that I've had for 3 years. That dog does not know my name, does not know how much money or not money is in my bank account, doesn't know who I'm friends with or what I do. And yet she is like right here with me. Like I'm her whole world and she's mine. And yet she teaches me a lot because she relies on the sense of her nose and her ear and her eyes to navigate her life. And so that also sort of, again, keeps me in that space of curiosity of she trusts me for some reason. She has a faith in me to take care of her, to feed her. And so I think that also allows me to keep an open mind about that connectivity and that spiritual relationship that she and I have, if you will.
yeah, yeah. I think that number one, in your podcast, The Wizard of Us, you tell a whole story about having your dog with you and stuff, and you guys should go check that out. It's a great podcast. But I would say that, of course, we know, well, you may not. Are you familiar with the story of Pavlov's dog?
No.
Okay. So Pavlov was a psychologist who first came up with conditioning through rewards and things. And I would say that number one, your dog stays around you because you feed it, and you care for it. And I do think that we can build relationships with animals and things. I think many animals are capable of that, but yeah, I don't really, I wouldn't say I so much have a problem with any of that. Of course, my view on it would be different because of my worldview that includes atheism.
Yeah, but
So
understand, like when I rescued that dog, I didn't feed it. Like I could be without money or food, and that dog would still trust me. And I
yeah,
think the world of modern culture, religion and non-religion, atheism or agnostic or whatever you believe, has diluted the word spirituality from what it actually is, because we think it's associated with an entity that isn't always the case.
yeah. Yeah, I don't honestly think that you have to hold that spirituality as some supernatural thing either. I mean, I actually accept spirituality. I would say um I would I would just have a different reason for the cause of a person's spirituality. I think that your attitude and things that I feel are created by your brain are the things that we call spirituality. So I don't think that it doesn't exist. I just have a different reason for it. Um, but that doesn't make mine any more real than yours or anything else. In fact, being skeptical may actually limit me on viewing that more than that. But when it comes to belief, it's not so much a choice. Either we believe something or we don't. Um, but the uh, I like that example though. That's a great way of looking at it. I have no problem with that whatsoever as an atheist. That
Yeah.
doesn't that doesn't violate any of my laws at all.
Well, and also thank you for listening to the podcast and referring that, because that is more than about the dog. It just talks about how the broken parts in each of us would bring in, outside of us and other people too. So,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I really liked that. That was I listened to a few that you set me up with, and I really liked that one. I noticed something in your bio. You said you had performed for Shinzo Abe.
Mm-hmm.
That must have been really cool. The with him, dying recently
Mm-hmm.
uh, from an assassination.
Mm-hmm.
How did you feel about that? Or did you
Well,
even meet the man?
yes, I was on the same bus with his wife and his closest delegates. Um, it was unlike anything I had ever experienced before. And quite frankly, if you'd have told me 18 years ago when I moved to Nashville, like, that would be on the bingo card, I would have been like, you're crazy. But the reason it was fascinating is because, most people in China or Japan or anywhere in Europe, but especially those two countries, they don't really know anything about Tennessee at all, other
All
than
right.
like Elvis, Dolly Parton, and Jack Daniels, you know. Uh, and it's funny because we were at the venue, and then I got back on the bus with them, and to go back to like the hotels that they were staying at, and he asked if I knew where Dolly Parton lived, and I said, well, I know she has like 5 homes here in Nashville, and I was like, I do know where one is located. and it's not far from where we're at. So I like tell the bus driver to divert the bus, like to go down this road to where we could get in front of one of our homes. And Secret Service went on, and his bus like makes a right. We go off the beaten path that was scheduled, and so they're blowing my phone up, like, and the bus driver like, what are you all doing? And I was like, him and his wife want to get a picture in front of Dolly Parton's house, and so they did. But they were very, I mean, they didn't know what I was singing, probably a lot of, but they were very like entertained, and it was also refreshing to see like that they enjoyed the value of entertainment. Like they didn't know my songs or and I did some cover stuff too, but like they enjoyed the value of entertainment and the joy I get in performing, like I could see expressed in their face. And so that was very cool. Music is a universal language, and it is the one thing that's not tied to religion or spirituality, but it does bring something, it does activate something inside of someone that results in a feeling. So it was very cool. And I was, anytime an assassination happens is just bad collectively. But it was very sad, but he and his wife and his delegates treated me very kindly during their visit here. So I won't forget that.
That's awesome. That's an awesome story. I seen that in there, and I was like, I have to ask about that. Well, one of the reasons that you specifically were great for this discussion wasn't just because I know you. I mean, that's always a plus. But one of the things that made you great for it is because I feel like musicians have an understanding of soul and spirituality that may be different than some other people. Not to say it has to be unique, but I feel like your view on it would have been unique, which it is actually. I mean, so that's why I actually wanted to talk to you about these things. I felt like it's the perspective of somebody in the music business who can maybe tell me something I haven't heard before.
Yeah, well, I will tell you, if you will, I've got sort of a montage story. There was a time in my life where I really thought, and it wasn't because I resented music or that like, anything had happened for me to be discouraged by it. But I remember like hiking at a park here in Nashville, and my, what I call my soul or my spirit, some voice within me that is not mine, was like just sort of letting the universe know, like, hey, if this isn't singing and music is not what I'm supposed to do, if it's not like for my highest calling and service to all life, then remove it. Like I'm great at a lot of things. I've had jobs that I've been great at. I've sort of worked my way up, but I want to be crystal clear what I'm here to do. And by the end of that hike, man, I was like sweating and just like tears were like falling down my face. And I had no idea like what the hell is going on here, And what happened was I didn't lose my voice. I actually got better, and, relationships went away, and things that no longer served my life went away. And I will tell you, I have served, on the worship team at a large church in Nashville for many years. And again, like I'm aware of like what the church in general, but mega churches like the one I attend, it's one of, America's top 50 fastest growing churches, but like, I'm aware of like what they are here to do. And yet my perspective about church and the way I choose to like acknowledge my spirituality is like is just connection to myself, my guidance, like just following signs and having faith over fear, stuff like that. But I will say, like, I've been in like the Miami International Airport behind a lady who turns around, who recognizes me and just tells me how hearing me on stage, like when she was going through a time of loss, like brought her back to life. I've been in Uber rides where a grown-ass man turns off the clock and says that he was going through divorce and I was on stage. And, he just wished his wife was in the room, and come to find out she was, and he didn't know. Like, all of these experiences that aren't about me necessarily or my talent, but have divinely sort of taken what I have, my abilities as an artist, as a musician, as someone, as I believe that artists in general, like, are given a little bit of extra real estate to like spend and give out to the world while we're here on earth. Whether you paint or you write or you have a YouTube show, like, we have something extra to give to the world. And I think that just is inherent in each of us. But hearing all these sort of interactions with people has not, like, I don't really have an ego, but it's just reminded me of, it's not about me, and also their experience of me or my music is also not my business. That's between them and whatever they choose to believe in, or them and whatever they're walking through, and it's not lost on me that effect is something that I also have an instrument in, helping sort of, it's like lending them a hand, if you will, without needing anything from them. And so I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful that I get to use my voice with a podcast or on stages, or in writing rooms, just to like express something that doesn't have life, that is within me, and bring it to life and just put it out in the world, detached from any sort of rules or regulations, or terms of outcome.
Sure. That, of course, doing an atheist YouTube channel, it isn't my goal to make other people atheists or to disprove God or anything like that. My only goal in doing this is to expose harm and lies done in the name of religion. I don't have a problem with people that believe, as many of them think. I try to expose harm, and if my channel provides community for any person to come and feel like they can be themselves, or if it prevents someone from proceeding into a cult or a harmful religion, or if I can help them through some groups I work with to escape a harmful thing, if I can do that for one person, I'm ecstatic. I'm pleased completely, and I feel kind of the same way there. It's not necessarily that, I don't really care what my words mean to everybody, if that makes sense. But I do hope that at least somebody finds some kind of help or anything from them.
Yeah. And also, Joe, like, first off, you're letting them know, one, there are options other than the one they're in, two, like, that there's a space that they can be, that they can learn from. And also you're holding a mirror up for them, to them, and I think oftentimes, especially stories like, and I'm not just limiting this, but Scientology, that church, I mean, like, that don't think that they could ever leave because they are just like committed to it, and that's just not the only one, but like, people, grown ass adult people, like, believe that they're stuck in these situations, and that is not the case,
Yeah. I mean, we've had stories all over the country with, of course, Catholic priests, and now Southern Baptists, and it's always been a thing with certain sects of Mormons. And
Yep.
It's not all of any of these groups that are that way, and it's certainly not the individual believer. It's the harmful. It's made harmful. It's not necessarily meant to be harmful. Now, while I say that, lying to people is not good, and I think that some of these religions have lies contained in their doctrines that they know they're there and they continue to do it. I don't really care for that, but that's not really, I'm not nitpicking them. So,
Sure.
but
Most of them are
yeah.
about control, not freedom, you know?
Oh,
And then behind control is because money is involved, or, you know, or tactics that, you know, have power over their lives, you know?
well, that actually brings us into something that I wanted to briefly discuss with you because you made a podcast titled The Hell of Hillsong. Um, Hillsong Church, which had meaning to you because of, well, I'll let you describe that, but go ahead.
Sure. So, I've been a fan of Hillsong for a long time. As I said, you know, I've served in a volunteer capacity at a church here in Nashville. And, you know, we would do a lot of Hillsong music, and like all churches do. Like, you know, I mean, that's sort of what I believe put Hillsong on the map, even though they started out as a church, the music department, and sort of really catapulted them into global recognition. Um, and then, you know, like, I wasn't familiar with Brian Houston, who started the church, but later on I became more familiar with Hillsong. Obviously, Hillsong New York, where Carl Lentz, now the failed pastor of that location, you know, just rose to, you know, celebrity across the nation. He was Justin Bieber's spiritual advisor. He was connected to the Kardashians. He was connected to NBA and NFL players. There was a line outside of that church every Sunday. Friends of mine went, and they would wait for hours to get in. And he wasn't even leading, you know, one of the 7 services, you know. It was just, again, like bringing moth to fire. And he was seated with Oprah. He released a book, all this stuff. He was the rock star pastor. And I honestly believe that he set the tone. Like, when he started dressing in torn up jeans and leather jackets, all these pastors in the South of these mega churches, other than like Joel Osteen, who is another story in a basket, you know, I can
I
talk
know
about
him.
ever. But other than him, he sort of was like this template of the rock star pastor that everybody wanted to have as their lead pastor. And, you know, at the end of the day, he's just another broken human, like you or I or anybody else. It just so happens he has a platform, he has a staff, he has a styling budget, and he's preaching from the Bible, which hasn't changed in 2,000 years. It's the truth, you know, that was written, not to us, but for us. He's up there and he's convincing people week in and week out to, you know, leave the darkness and into the light. But as the secrets of Hillsong, which is what the documentary is called, reveal, the volunteers could not even talk to him. They could not acknowledge him, you know, backstage. You know, there were many people who had allegations that he, you know, was sexually engaging with them. Obviously, it reveals that he had not just one affair, but like multiple affairs. And he was ultimately dismissed, you know, because it was so out of line. But what the documentary also reveals is that Brian Houston, who had the big iron fist come down and say, "You're fired," he also had, you know, women that he paid off over $30,000 with NDAs over the years that he had hidden as secrets. You know, he had slipped into a woman's hotel room drunk one night, you know, for almost 45 minutes and claimed nothing happened, you know. So, again, what is, you know, the big lie gets passed down if it's not resolved. And so it got passed down to Carl, and he got canned. Granted, he obviously made wrong choices, and wrong choices come with consequences. But, you know, as the documentary reveals, you know, he ended up going to, you know, a recovery center of a type to deal. And he realized, like, the choices he had made come from childhood trauma, which is in each of us, you know, that sort of is what makes our decisions of our choices. Like, he reveals that he was sexually abused as a child. Obviously, that gets carried on unless it's not healed. And I honestly felt like there was a little redemption for Carl Lentz in that documentary, you know, um, and I sort of tip my hat for him for, like, you know, coming out of hiding and giving his side of the story. Um, I see some narcissism still there in him, and I do know that since that's been released, he has gone on to accept another position at a mega church in Oklahoma, not as a teaching pastor, but certainly back in that field, which I find fascinating, because whenever you've been at a level like him in a pastoral position and something controversial happens to you, you have to, like, leave the states, leave, you know, that field, and never to return again, you know. But obviously they have given him a second chance. Now, I, after that, was like, I wonder how many churches will stop singing Hillsong music on Sundays. Like, everyone needs that works at a church should watch this documentary, and no one should give them any more money, because every Sunday they sing a Hillsong song, Hillsong gets paid for it. And, you know, I will say my church still sings Hillsong songs, and I'm like, y'all, I just don't know how I feel about that. You know, like, it is a corrupt, like, evil, like, I mean, just the things that they ask. When's the last time have you masturbated? When's the last time you masturbated? Have you had sex in the last 6 months? Like, that shit is unnecessary, immoral, and nobody's business, you know. And I will say, Joe, at the very end of that, if you finished it, the drummer, who, like, I was mind blown. They accused him of being homosexual, and his records show, I mean, he was sexually abused. But at the end of the documentary, he was like, "I'm a happy atheist now." You know.
Oh yeah, I did see that. Yeah.
But I've always had a weird, gross feeling about Hillsong and a lot of other mega churches. Obviously, Hillsong is not the only one. Jerry Falwell Jr. Talk about that guy and the Pool Boy. You know, even if you watch, there was a great movie, The Eyes of Tammy Faye, about Tammy Faye and Jim Bakker. They were like the OG originators, stealing money, you know, and he was homosexual, you know, like, it was all a show. But the curtain was pulled back, and the great, powerful Wizard of Oz is just a man, a broken man, you know?
Yeah. I can name dozens of these televangelists and mega church pastors that are corrupt in a number of ways and have been caught in innumerable numbers of corrupt cases, and just it seems to be I don't want to say, well, I mean, I do think that Christianity kind of lends itself to this behavior, because I'm not saying that Christians are this way, or that that this is Christian. I'm saying that if you think that you can just go home and pray and say sorry and everything's forgiven, then being the rock star pastor that comes with the rock star life, of course, may not work too well with that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that these pastors are pastors, preachers. I think some of them are performers more than anything, but I think they put themselves in a position that they're not ready for, and that's for the ones who aren't just straight grifters like the Copelands and the Swaggarts and Tilden and Hagen, and I can name them all day. I'm telling you, I'm very familiar with these people. I've made 3 videos about televangelists now, where I've got a fly flying around me, where I talk about the grifts and the things that they're doing to their own congregation. I get attacked a lot by Christians for this, but I'm actually exposing the things that these preachers are doing to Christians. It's not because I don't. It has nothing to do with me being atheist. It's because it's harmful and they're lying. I mean, that's all. But there seems to be a lot of that in televangelists and these mega churches. Hillsong, I think, was only unique because of Carl Lentz's fame. I mean, I think that's the only thing, because when I watched that video, I was like, well, what's new about this? This goes on all the time. But it's because of who he was. And then whenever they started digging, of course, they find out about all of the Houstons having different things. The father, what there was Brian and
Frank Houston.
Frank. Yes, Frank Houston had a very shady past.
He was a pedophile, and also his wife knew. That's what's even more shocking.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate, and of course, like many stories, it was the people that he that should have trusted him most that he was doing these things to, um, which is awful. But I think Hillsong though exposed these things to another crowd, and I just wish the documentary would have said that this is not something unique to Hillsong, that it goes on, and that it's becoming more and more common. I wish they would have pointed that out. They wouldn't have had to got into it, but still, it was a good documentary, and it told the story it was trying to tell. So I have no bitch with it. I just, that's just me. As someone who does this, maybe I look at it too deeply. Maybe I expect it to be more than it is.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that whenever and that's the thing that sticks out to me is rock star pastor, and I think those two things are not compatible. Not to say that anybody who is any kind of star does those things, but it's more temptation than someone that's just a pastor needs to deal with.
Yeah.
Speaking of the music of Hillsong, yes, I agree with you. That is the thing, and I also agree with you that churches that are continuing to use that stuff are 100% condoning the activities that went on there. I would, if they know, and if they don't know, they should. So,
Familiar with the Remnant Church?
the Remnant,
Yeah.
not the name of the church. Who's the pastor?
The pastor. Her name is escaping me, but I will recall it. But there's a documentary on it, and I don't know if it's Hulu, but she was the one that had the big blonde hair, and her husband died in a plane crash I think in 2020. But she started this church here in Nashville in Brentwood. I'm going to look up her name while I'm telling you this. And
okay,
she it was all about weight loss. Oh, her name is Gwen Shamblin.
I'm not real familiar with her activities, but I do know of her from different things I've looked into.
But it started as a weight loss thing. She was sort of almost like an MLM, But then they built this community. So you had to live in the neighborhood, and your dentist was part of the Remnant Church. Your repairman was part of the Remnant Church. And there's one story about parents having trouble with their son, and she advised them that the only way to discipline him and teach him God's will was to sit him in a room alone in a box until he redeemed himself, and he died of dehydration. So the stories go on and on and on.
Yeah, unfortunately they do, and that's really one of the reasons that I do what I do, to put those stories out there. Sunlight is the best disinfectant, they say. Mm-hmm. And so if somebody sees that, and hopefully they make a decision not to take a step into that. I mean, be a believer, believe whatever you want to, but the getting involved with some of these mega churches, not all, of course, but a fair number of them have huge problems like this. Texas, of course, is mega church capital of the world, and it is just rampant with corruption. I mean, it's awful. the Creflo, and well, I'm not even going to start naming televangelists again because Creflo actually recently changed his ideas on that. So sorry, Creflo. But you know, it's just it's wild. Now down there in Tennessee, you have Greg Locke, who was recently in one of my videos, and Greg Locke is a character. He's actually entertaining to watch, even if you are an atheist. I get a laugh out of it myself, but you know, unfortunately, there's a darker side to that. But yeah, I'm sorry you have to be in the same state as Greg Locke.
Like, you have no idea that. I mean, he reminds me of a WWE wrestler. Is what honestly what he reminds me of.
Oh
And
yeah.
and I just thought, like, you know, the first time that he started all this stuff, like before COVID, you know, I don't even know like what he was preaching on that went viral, but I thought there's no way this kook is going to make it. And then it just like seemed to like, you know, expand his platform, and he's just gone all deeper and deeper and deeper off the end, you know.
Well, Greg Locke started out, well, I don't want to say started out, but one of his things that got him popular on the internet was his support of Trump and making these videos that say that God told him that Trump is going to be president again after he lost, and that was really one of the things that started getting him more views. And then of course once people were exposed to him, it brought more views because of the personality he has. Greg Locke is a larger than life person, and I would say he's a great performer because it's a performance. He knows that the things he says are not true. Some of it anyway. Um, and then of course the big thing that spread across the internet was when he started saying that there were witches in his church, and was exposing those people as witches, and he's threatened the town of Mount Juliet, and he's doxed several people, and yeah, so there's a lot of reason why he's not known for good reasons.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but he's a interesting guy to watch, to say the least. Who, at the end of the day, um, I have no respect for for the
Well,
things he does.
you know, like I believe that everyone has both light and dark in them, but everything that you just rattled off about Greg Locke, he's a great performer. He's enthusiastic. He, you know, is like, well, so was Adolf Hitler, and how did that all turn out? You know,
Yeah.
Hitler was Hitler was a light, and you know, like all these things. He had dogs. People were, you know, admired him, and we all know how that story ended. You know, so I'm sure before eventually, like, there will be a downfall to Greg Locke, and it will probably not be pretty. You know, we just haven't seen
Oh
it.
no.
There's also another one who is Trump's spiritual advisor, Paula White.
Oh yeah.
You know, she's married to one of the founding members of the band Journey, Jonathan Cain.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and
Journey was. Go ahead.
Journey, 80s band who I freaking love. You know, and
Journey is the first band I ever saw live.
yeah,
That's the first concert I ever went to.
where was that at?
It was in Columbus at the one that's outside the, yeah, Polaris is what it was called then.
Okay,
Uh,
yeah, but
yeah,
I
I
think like he's married to her. You know,
yeah. The and it's weird because it seems that preachers and this putting them in the same basket with other famous people, and them acting like celebrities and things like that, it seems out of place to me. I
mm-hmm.
mean, but I guess anybody's entitled to that if they're good at what they do, and people like them. I mean, it's not their fault they got famous, I don't guess. But unfortunately, they use it for evil,
Mm-hmm.
or what you would call evil.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't. The mega churches though, they people love to watch the videos about them. Those are my most watched videos, and there's something about it that attracts people, even though they do some of the most absurd and crazy things on stage. You have Kenneth Copeland blowing COVID away with his breath, and you have Bob Hagan running around and rolling in the floor and acting like a drunk man, and it's just when you see it, and they get the whole audience to act this way too. One of the more recent ones, Catherine Crick, who I think is also in Tennessee, at least right now anyway. Maybe not. Don't. I wouldn't swear to that. But no, she's in L.A. Sorry, um, but she does exorcisms on stage, and one of the things I pointed out is no more of the days of spinning heads and holy water and Christ compels you. It's 1, 2, 3, your demon's gone, and then she jumps up and down. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's and I hate that people fall for it, and I don't necessarily see. One of the great things is I don't judge those people for it because of where you and I grew up. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, did you know any atheists when you were growing up here?
Oh, I don't even
No.
know the word atheist.
Yeah. It's even if you didn't go to church, you were a Christian. I mean, it's or you better not tell anybody different.
Yeah.
It's it's crazy. But I feel like that gives me a perspective again about perspectives that maybe some people don't have,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, I always say I love Eastern Kentucky, just not the people. But
Yeah.
I don't hate anyone. I just feel out of place here, of course.
Sure.
But
Yeah. And
whatever.
and I look at my grandparents who thank God are living. I lost my grandfather on my dad's side a couple of years ago, but they go to church every week, and I can. They are, as our people say, set in their ways, if you will. And I would never push back on them about what they believe or where they find hope on a Sunday. And quite frankly, their friendships was what I really think they still go and do it for, is the community. And they're up in age, and so I will not hate on that. I'm just thankful that I got out, like I jumped the mountain and got out of there, because it opened me up to what else was possible. Um,
Culture.
culture, yeah. And
Yeah.
my grandparents go to a church, and the pastor up there, I remember going one Sunday. And when I walk into the room, it's like a lion walking into a chicken coop. They're like, "Whoa, who is this guy?" um,
Oh yeah.
but he was like talking about Trump from the pulpit, and like God has called Trump to be president and all this stuff. And I was just thinking, like, this is unnecessary for a church service. And I have a lot of questions about Donald Trump and his moral integrity, if you will. Um,
Yeah.
And I also have compassion for Donald Trump, because I don't know what happened to him as a child that drives his choices to do some of the messed up things that he has done and is doing. I do have compassion for him, like I have compassion for Mother Teresa, who did a lot of good in the world. But that's just like where I sort of land in my own being, if you will.
I actually have a theory about Trump. I think that I think that Trump seen the way that religion behaves, and that's actually why he does some of the things he does. Not that he's religious. I don't think he even believes in God, honestly. I think he believes he's God. But I think that him and the Republican Party as a whole now, but in the beginning just Trump, I think that he got some of this from religion, because I see them do and say things that I've only seen from televangelists and from Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I honestly think there's something to that. But I can't prove that. And there's, I don't really have a great reason for saying it, but there's some examples of things that, he's done and the way he acts. And even if something's a lie, just keep repeating it. And I feel like, I really do feel like that's why he does some of the things he does, because they're making it a religion. And now they're trying to add Christian nationalism into that, and it's nothing good will come from that, I promise you.
Yeah. A friend of mine who actually plays in a church, he said if Donald Trump is not the Antichrist, we all better be scared as hell for what is,
That's good.
Yeah.
uh the I said most of my videos don't really debunk, like, I'm not trying to debunk Christianity.
Sure.
Although I do say things, and I did do a video about debunking the resurrection, or at least the historicity of the resurrection. And so just something you said there reminded me of that. But but yeah, you know. But anyway, so you have traveled, you know, all over the world, and met a lot of cool people. And growing up, I would say any of us that knew you in our little friend group, um, Jamie and Courtney and all those people, anyone that knew you, I would say that they didn't expect anything less from you. I mean, uh, you tell me you're in Nashville as a pop artist. I'm like, yeah, I figured that. But the I feel like that maybe gave you some perspective on things that I don't have because I'm still here.
Mhm.
So, I think it was great to talk about those things, and I'm really glad that you were okay with taking part in this.
Yeah.
Some people hear atheist YouTube channel and run the other way. My own sister won't even come on because she doesn't want her patients to know she took part in it.
Well, yeah.
Which, I understand, I guess. And
Mhm.
what you were saying about your grandparents, though, my grandmother was a devout Pentecostal, okay? And for her whole life until she died, her hair was down past her knees and stuff. But anyway, had I questioned her something about God, she'd have beat the hell out of me. I
Yeah.
wouldn't have had to worry about, you know, making her mad. I would have never said another word about it. But
Mhm.
um, anyway, I'm really glad that you decided to do this, Stephen. And why don't you tell everybody where they can find you before we
Sure.
wrap up, and where you're at on the internet, and what they can look for of yours, whatever you want to tell them. Go ahead.
Can I ask you something before I do that?
Oh yeah, of course.
So whenever because you shared with me you had a major health scare last year, a couple years ago, right? Did you ever I don't know what the term is for an atheist, but did you pray or did you have thoughts of healing to that you reached for a source from during that time period?
Um, no, I didn't pray or anything. And I wasn't scared of dying. I was scared of my kids not having a dad, honestly. Um, that's the thing that worried me most. And when the chaplain came into the room, because they were going to go ahead and do the last rites before I went to surgery.
Wow.
Um, yeah. Well, last rites is more of a Catholic thing, but that's what he was there for anyway. But when the chaplain came in the room, he said, do you want to pray or talk about, your belief or whatever, and you can this and that. And I said, no. I said, I said, I'm an atheist. I said, in fact, I'm more of an anti-theist. I feel that religion is bad. But uh, no, there was no prayer or anything. And I didn't feel anything like any kind of in touch with anything like that. I will tell you this: I had a motorcycle wreck the year before that, though, where I broke. Uh, well, I shattered my wrist and my arm and broke some ribs and had road rash on 50% of my body. And um, now, when I went to the hospital for that, they gave me ketamine to set my wrist. Now, I had a moment there. I thought I went to hell for a minute, but you know, I in the beginning of it, I thought I went to hell, and there was like fire and stuff, and then I was just in this empty space, and I was like, well, I guess this is my hell, just here with nothing, bored.
Mhm.
Um, and but then you know, of course, and then I was like floating among the planets and stuff, and I was like, oh well, no, I was right, there is no god, and this is what it is, this is cool. And you know, and then I was coming back in and out of consciousness in the room and stuff from the K-hole they had put me in. And but yeah, that would be the closest thing to a religious experience that which of course is all explained.
Yeah.
But but it is now in all of my medical records and even saved on my iPhone that do not give me ketamine no matter what happens. I'll stay awake through it. You go ahead and set them bones. Do not give me ketamine. That was awful. I lived I was out for 8 minutes, and I
Mhm.
lived years of my life in that 8 minutes.
Wow.
A whole nother life took place where I
Wow.
was like still with my ex-wife, and this was all like an experiment to make me be good and all these things. And yeah, it was very traumatic, and I have flashbacks of it to this day, and it was
Man,
awful.
man.
Um, so, but the heart surgery, really, the worst part of it was just the recovery.
Mhm.
Uh, I was down for quite a while,
Mhm.
and but nothing religious.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. That's actually a good question. You know, and we can do this again sometime if you like. You know, or even, you know, if you want to come in and give your perspective on some bit of thing that I'm covering, I'm down for that too. That sounds great. So I really like talking with you. You know, I didn't want this to be a thing of where I was going to have to say, no, that's not true and you're wrong
Right.
and all that, because I do a lot of that, and it's not, again, it's not what I wanted to do with this. I just wanted to get your perspective and talk about some
Sure.
of your experience.
Mhm.
And I think you hit the nail on the head with all of it, and you did a great job.
Thank you.
Uh, so, yeah, go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you at, and we'll wrap it up.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm a little more active on Instagram, and my Instagram handle is at the Stephens Salyers, and Stephen is with StephenSalyers. But you'll find my Linktree link on there, which is link.tree / the Stephens Salyers. And that link tree will take you to my podcast, which is called Say Something, available on Apple and Spotify every week. And my music, which is on iTunes, Spotify, Tidal, everywhere you can get music at. I've got 3 songs out right now. I've got a clothing line, and so that'll link you to that as well. So anything is always at the Stephens Salyers on Instagram, or Linktree / at the Stephens Salyers. And Joe, I appreciate you taking the time to do this, connecting with you, and keeping an open mind, but also the platform that you have sort of developed, and community that you have to give people, whether it's in Eastern Kentucky or wherever, a voice of reason, and insight that they're not crazy, that there are other options. So
Yeah.
it's great.
Well, again, thanks for coming, and everybody go check Steven out. His podcast is great, and the episodes are not extremely long, so it's something you can listen to. It's really great. I enjoyed it, and you know I'm skeptical of everybody, and I liked it, so you will too. So everybody go check out Steven, and uh, thanks for watching. Have a good one, guys.